The queen you are. So I finally finished finale, and it was okay. The only real issue I had with it was the way that Tella and Scarlet's POV changed. I don't mind multi POV books. It just kind of felt Tella had more and Scarlet was kind of sidelined. It got better at the end, but I did feel like Scarlet was sidelined. I didn't really mind the fact that book one was Scarlet and book two was Donatella, but I think their combined book was just kind of another Tella book with some Scarlet hints here and there, almost like the LaCroix of her POV. But yeah, well, let's start with what I liked about finale. I did like the time travel, I guess, because it was an interesting prospect of the book. Time traveling is always interesting in series because I feel like some series forget that even something changing in the past, like that seem small and insignificant, like the dress you wear to your wedding, can change anything. And sometimes we forget that. But the book treated it very well. And the foreshadowing of, I guess it was like a slight foreshadowing. I didn't catch it. But we learned that their mother was warned of who her lover was. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start from the beginning. So after Carvel number two, where Dante is crowned, he's still only the crown prince. But Scarlet and Donatella move out of the castle because they don't want to like freeload and stuff, and they kind of want their own life, which is understandable. Julian and Scarlet kind of are still on shaky ground at this point, and she's starting to contact Count Nicholas. And he turns out to be an okay guy. He's, I guess he's just a guy, but he has a really sweet dog, and he's really sweet, and he's very careful with her. And Armando, the guy playing her fiance in the first carnival, is kind of around this book as well, which I did. I really enjoyed seeing the characters that were mentioned once or twice back in the book. It kind of creates a better sense of who's closest to legend. And so they're with their mother, they're trying to wait for their mother to wake up. And really early in the book, she does wake up. Their mother wakes up, and Tella, yeah, Tella's home. And she asks her to go get water because Scarlet's with the Count at this point in the story. And so Tella gets her water, and then when she comes back to give it to her, she's just gone. And there's this scent of magic around her that Tella can tell. So she's following this scent of magic to somewhere where it's really kind of weird. There's like circus stuff everywhere. So she hides behind some stuff and she's like sneaking around, but her mother does find her, and then her mother basically hides her and gives her a drug that she can't move. So, and then a guy comes in, and it's like, who is this guy? And apparently it's her mother's side piece. More on that later. But yeah, she watches as her mother kiss someone who is not her father and then proceeds to stab him. And then, unfortunately, her mother gets got as well. And then Jax comes and is like, "Yeah, surprise! That's a fate. That's the fallen star." Sorry. And yeah, he basically takes her back and kind of helps her through the stuff. And she's obviously in grief. And Jax wants out an offer to take away her pain in exchange for a type of ritual. She doesn't know exactly what he's gaining, but she knows it's something because Jax does nothing for just others. He always does it for himself. And it's they kiss. They kiss. They start making out after. And she feels her pain go away, and she's been having issues. And of course, eventually, because Legend is king and, well, crown prince, but close enough, he's very close to his coronation, and he's been visiting in her dreams. And the prize that he wants to give her is to be immortal. That means no more falling in love. So the caveat for immortality and power is you can no longer love. Not that you can't, but love makes you mortal. Love makes you human. And if you are human too long enough, you stay that way. And it creates this kind of, do you want power or do you want humanity? And it's just this back and forth, because she eventually finds out that Legend can love her. Dante can't love her or he'll lose all his powers. And she's jealous of Scarlet and Julian because they are fully human. They have their humanity. They can fully love each other. Now with the Fates, it's more of a all or nothing. They cannot feel love, but they can feel obsession. They can feel wanting to possess someone fully. And Jax is in love with Tella. Not in the love way, but more in the obsession way. He wants to possess her. He wants to hold her close. He almost wants to own her. And eventually, throughout the book, Tella unfortunately gets captured by Legend's guards. And it was kind of an accident. Dante said, I want her to brought here, but he didn't specify how, so she ended up in the dungeon. And then he kind of apologized and said, hey, you didn't have to leave the palace. Mind you, in the same vein, Scarlet is beefing with Julian because he's been gone for way longer than he should have, and he didn't contact her when he got back to town. And she's just like, do you love me? What are you doing here? Like, not even a hello? Not even a how you've been? Just nothing? That's silence? So while they're at the Count's house and like all this is going on, and then it's basically Julian and Scarlet go to the Count's house, and then they go back to the palace, and then they find Tella in the dungeon. But Scarlet proposes a competition for her hand. She quickly realizes Julian has her whole heart, but she still wants to give the Count a fair shot. But eventually she's like, yeah, that's not fair to anybody. If I try to love the Count, it's just not gonna happen. And on their way to the palace, before they find out that their mother is dead and everything else, they come across a party. And it's odd. Nobody's moving, and they find a note from the Fate Poisoner. And it basically says, hey, I need you to tell me like the last lie you told. Otherwise, they're gonna stay frozen. Kisses. And so they tell the lie. Julian says he was like back sooner than he initially was. And Scarlet told that she didn't really want the competition. And then everybody came back. And then Scarlet receives a key from a little girl. And they're like, what is this key? And they eventually find out it's the Reverie key. I really hope I'm saying that right. But it basically takes you to any person you are thinking of. For example, they visited Julian's, I think, cousin in like the fort in the like far off place. I hear that was like really early on in the book. But and they just kind of had fun with it, which honestly get it. They needed fun before the ending. But it's so good. And of course, Tella's beefing with both Jax and Dante. Honestly, girl, I understand you. I understand. Because like she just wants answers. And they're not communicating. But yeah, so that all happens, and then everybody gets caught up on the fact that Miss Paradise the Lost is no longer with the living. And then they kind of just are realizing that all the fates are out of the deck and like awake because of Scarlet telling that, hey, Poisoner's out and he's causing mayhem, like really badly. So after some more shenanigans, they go back to the Count's house, except nope, sorry, that's later. That's Donatella and Julian, not Scarlet. It's been a hot minute. I was really busy. I was trying to read this also with like the con and the concert and stuff, so the memory at the beginning is a little hazy, but that's okay. We'll work with it. So Scarlet gets a letter from the Count telling her to meet at the docks. She's like, okay, I guess I do need to tell him that the game's off, but I guess now's the best time since he wants to meet up. So she goes and she gets kidnapped. And one of the people kidnapping her go, hey, be careful. Her dad wants her safe. Of course, I'm thinking Marcello. More on that later. But she gets caught. And then we get the nice little image of Donatella and Julian going back to the Count's house because maybe Scarlet's there and fates are everywhere. And they're like, this sucks. Surprise, Dante is momentarily passed. They were at a cutesy little garden event where Legend told her what the prize was going to be. And then she got mad at him because she wants him not to be immortal. And then the fates come and knock Dante upside the head. And I was spooked, not gonna lie. It was very much of a because he didn't come back for a hot second. So in this panic, Julian and Donatella go to the Count's house to see if Scarlet's there. And of course, they're starting to smell this rotted smell that smells awful. And they hear dog barking. And they go in and find the Count burnt to a crisp. And they're like, okay, where's everybody else? What is happening? I don't like it here. I don't like it here. Which honestly, same. And they go to the back and they find the servants strung up like marionettes. And they're in this dance that they're exhausted. They must have been there for an extended amount of time because the lacerations on their wrists and ankles are awful. And it turns out it's Jester Mad's doing. Now, Jester Mad cannot manipulate humans, but he can manipulate objects. So with the ropes, he can kind of control them like a puppet. And so that happens. And then we jump back to Scarlet, and she's in the fated place of the menagerie. And she sees the lady prisoner there, and she's just kind of chilling. She has a cage and a swing, and that's it. No bed. Honestly, the accommodations could have been nicer, but I digress. And they start to talk, and the fallen star comes in. And surprise, Tella is not Marcello's daughter. She's the fallen stars. The way I gasped. My shivers were tempered. I'm glad we didn't see Marcello in this book. He was only mentioned. But I would argue Gabriel, the Fallen Star, is a worse step than Marcello. Like, they're battling for Father of the Year. And I hate that man with a passion. But he's basically like a really bad dad. So Scarlet, with her seeing emotions as colors, she can manipulate emotions. That's her fated power. She's like half fate. So basically, her mom and him had a tryst when she was Paradise and like this really cool thief. And then she found out that he was a fallen star, like one of the fates. And so she hopped down to her other side piece, Marcello. And then they had Tella, and then like this series happens. But yeah. And then Tella goes to another fated place, the market, and she trades the secret of her future daughter's weakness to these two sisters. One is like really old, and the other is young and kind of loopy. She's not having a bad time, but she trades Gabriel's one secret that they have, and he was human once. He did actually love paradise. He loved their mother like deeply until she betrayed him and put him back in the deck. Whew, words are a struggle today, but that's okay. So she basically does that, and then she's like, that wasn't helpful. We need the Reverie book. Some of these names are quite interesting, not gonna lie. I do have to look at some of the spelling. It doesn't help much, but it helps at least a little bit. Thankfully, there's a very good glossary in the back of the book that tells me. Oh, I was wrong. Okay, the key is the Reverie key. This one is the Rusika book, and it's like you place some blood in it, and it tells like the entire story of whoever's blood that is, and like weakness and blah blah blah. So they're on the hunt for this, and then Jax comes over and is like, "Hey, I have this map here. Here, Tella, kiss me." And Jax is so funny. I do love him. I cannot wait to read more about him in Once Upon a Broken Heart. But the map, it's so funny. It's like this place leads to ruination. There's actual skeletons in the closet. Like, it's giving commentary. I love the map of all. Like, spice life up. So they basically lead to the library because you cannot find the library unless you've either been there or have the map of all. So they'll go in there, and to enter, basically, there's always like a sacrifice. This book is very much about sacrificing and exchanging something for something else. So they can't talk while they're in there. They can't make noise, and it's quiet. There's no noise in there. So they get the book, they jet out, and they kind of meet a few other fates. They meet the assassin who can travel through space and time, and they meet the Maiden Death, the Maiden Death, and they're kind of cautious with them. They're like, the other people are mean. What's the vibe here? And we don't see much of the fates, honestly, except for like Jax and like Gabrielle, obviously. But they're just kind of there, and they try to offer the help, but it's kind of refused because, honestly, respectable. You can't trust immortal fates at this point in the book. But so they get the book, and they try to have Tella get Gabrielle's blood. Scarlet really quickly gets out of there. Unfortunately, she's being watched by the lady prisoner, or Anissa. I really hope I'm saying that right. It's either Anissa or Anissa. But yeah, so she basically sneaks out, and then since the lady prisoner cannot lie, she's held to her truth. Like, if she says she's going to eat a red apple, she has to eat a red apple. But that's really simplifying it. But she basically helps Scarlet. She's like, "Oh, my nail just came off. Okay, that's okay. I'm gonna have to take these off today. That feels really weird. I'm so sorry for the interruption, but that's crazy. We're gonna set that there, and then we'll continue. But yeah. So okay, so she basically comes back and it's like, hey, you were gone way too late. And then they may have a plan to get Gabriel's blood. So Scarlet tries to get his blood and fails. He comes back to life way too quickly. He smashes the vial of his blood, and she's knocked out, and then she wakes up with a cage of rubies around her head. And she's pretty distraught, honestly valid. And the witch I think Esmeralda comes in. Now, at the beginning of the book, Tella also follows Dante, and he basically steals all of her powers. And so Scarlet basically has to manipulate her emotions to love Gabriel, even though this woman hates him, and I hate him too. He's a really good villain, but she convinces her to put on an act so they can both get out of there. Unfortunately, Esmeralda does not leave that room alive. Um, I digress. But anyway, we get back to Donatella, and she's bored. She doesn't have Gabriel's blood yet, so she takes a little bit of her own and writes in the book. And she says, "Tell me a story," and list out like sections of her life, like Tella loses a tooth, and then she sees Tella gets married. So she flips to that section, and turns out that little ritual to get rid of her like grieving also married them together. So she storms over to Jack's gambling hall, and she's like, "What? Why? Hello? Huh? I'm confused." And Jack's just like, "Yeah, sorry, I guess. I mean, not really, but like, do you want to stay married?" And of course, she says no. So they basically have to undo the ritual. You can't undo it, but you can sever it. So she basically stabs him, and he's sad. He doesn't really react. He's very much not there mentally. And it's just like a whole thing. And then Gabriel has this plan to basically use the fates that are controlling the capital and basically make a grand entrance and like be everybody's savior before he destroys everything. I hate this man. So Scarlet basically escapes with the help of the assassin, and she goes back in time to when her mother was getting the dress that Gabriel had secretly made, but she found about it. She was like, "I'm gonna wear this dress and propose to him." And then she notices Scarlet following, because Scarlet isn't that sneaky. And they basically confronted each other in an alley, and she's like, "Hi, I'm your kid. Your lover's not a good guy. He's actually a fate. Like, ugh. Sorry." So she basically, her mother basically gives her the dress, and she goes and pretends to be Paradise. And it works. The assassin appears in this grand ballroom where it's just awful. Oh, but before that, sorry, I like mentally checked out with this part because it was Julian needs therapy. But so Julian basically skimps out to go save Scarlet, and Dante's like, "I need to leash my brother. He's dumb. His impulses control him." So he basically disguises himself as a guard, and Scarlet's just there watching as people get tortured by the fates. And it's just awful because she also, mind you, this is the same night she found out Elatane, the Empress, is her grandma. I kind of called that one, but so Paradise was speculated to be Elatane's lost heir, which honestly, the conversation between Tella and Elatane in book 2 was giving hints. It was giving foreshadowing. But anyway, back to the present. So Scarlet's just like, "Oh, I hate this. I hate this here." And then Gabriel notices her looking at Julian, and oops, he uses priestess, whose power is like people are compelled to tell her the truth when she asks them a question. And he's like, "Oh, you aren't getting to your powers because you love this boy. Take his love away from you. Like, just make him hate you." And that's when Scarlet steps into her powerful and goes, "Oh, this is how you control emotions." No. So Julian gets snatched away and she basically runs and everything's really bad. And we get to see Julian in a torture chamber with a mask on his face that can't be taken off until Gabrielle is past tense, along with the lady prisoner's cage, even her own cage when she had it on before she had it taken off as a reward for controlling someone's emotions. She didn't, but I digress. She's a good actor. She deserves an Emmy and an Oscar and everything. I'm pretty sure an Emmy's for acting. If it's not, don't at me. But yeah, that was a really hard page. I was reading that last night and I was sobbing because Julian deserves the world. And so basically, back to the present. Scarlet pretends to be her mother and it's working, except it's working in the wrong direction. It's not love, it's planning for the future, raising Scarlet to be his prodigy. And then she goes, okay, I need to flip. So she drops the act and just beats herself. And for a second, there is love in his eyes. And then Tella does the great thing after doing the wrong thing of letting Jax control her emotions so she can get close enough and proceeds to put the dog down. We love to see it. We love to see villains getting what they want. And he transfers his power into a blade so everybody who's trapped in one of his cages can get freed. Now, any immortal who turns mortal by the way of love, their power just doesn't fade away. It has to go somewhere. For like the dress she is wearing that's been changing and eventually made into a pair of gloves because it got damaged protecting her was a fate at one point, and the reverie key is a fate at one point. And I find that really interesting because where does that extra power go in a world where magic is so limited and so rare? That where does it go with like when it's in excess? Yes, humans technically in the world of Carnival have magic, but it's so minuscule that it doesn't really affect anything. And it's just, I don't go home. My parents will something real quick. But so, yeah, it's everybody, every fate once they die after they fall in love with someone because they are immortal, they cannot die, as we've seen with Gabrielle. They turn into magical objects, which honestly might be better. Mainly because, mainly because you can get the scope of emotions. And taking away love, like Gabrielle was trying to do with Scarlet's power, it's not really living. It's almost like a half life. Whew. Sorry, we're having really bad allergies right now. But it's all trying not to live. You get a half life. You're not really loving. And I look at Legend and see how badly he wants Tella because he had to leave her on the steps because he fell in love with her that night. And it scared him. It scared him because immortality and the fear of death is just so powerful. And we don't really know Dante's story, but we know that his tattoos are fake. Well, some of them. The wings on his back stayed, but all his like rose tattoos on his hands, poofed. They were just an illusion. Granted, he told Tella that he had painted his life with his tattoos, but no, he just painted them on the wall. And the way he paints Tella is so beautiful and just he truly loves her. He sees her as this divine being just full of love. And it's really sweet because at the end, he does give up his immortality for her. He wants to love her, and he doesn't want her to have so much of him. He wants her to have all of him. And that's so sweet. Like, that's so cute. I love Dante and Julian. Julian, though, is my favorite. Dante could communicate more, but he was also everywhere. And then came the ending of Jack's, Tella, and Dante's little throuple almost. Tella was still under Jack's control, and her mind still wanted Legend. And eventually, she won out. Legend loved her. And it's so cute. And unfortunately, Jax is heartbroken now, and he goes off north. And yeah, okay. And then most of the fates do go up north just to like go hide, except for the poisoner. He's still kind of around. Now, when Julian was first like tortured, still my least favorite part of the book, he threw his like cup at him, and Scarlet thought he was gonna turn to stone or something, but nope, he healed him. I don't know how I feel about the poisoner. I'm gonna have to figure it out later, but I'm gonna let the poisoner cook. I'm curious to see. And then Scarlet gets to be Empress, and everything's kind of good so far. And then we get to the ending of the book, and Tella's like, I don't really belong here. And I have to read this because it was so adorable in like the last few pages. But she writes Legend a letter like she did at the way beginning of the series. But let me go actually find said letter. And it's like the last page of the book. I love how she ended it with like all the books with a letter, and it's so good. It's so funny. I really like Tella. I know a lot of people don't like Tella, but I think that's because they read Once Upon a Broken Heart first. And also, Tella can be stupid sometimes. But we have to remember she's also like 16, 17. And we've seen how teenagers act. Me, myself, I'm like only 19. And I still don't have my stuff together, but that's okay. So here is that letter. Year 1, Scarlet Dynasty. Dear Carvel, Master Legend, I no longer believe you are a liar, a blackguard, or a villain, but I'm wondering if you'd like to become one of those things again, because I would very much like your help. My sister is about to become an empress, which will make me a princess. I know you might not see this as a problem, but I assure you it is. I'm not meant to wander around a palace or be followed around by guards, but I don't want to make my sister look poorly by misbehaving. I promised her that I would not cause any scandals. So I need you to please cause a scandal for me, Legend. Kidnap me and take me on a new adventure. I know it's not really kidnapping if I ask you, but it'd be fun to pretend. I also think it might make a very interesting game. And I know how you like to play games. Yours forever, Donatella Drachma. And I do really like both dynamics. I love Julian and Scarlett's dynamic of just an easy love. Their love comes very naturally to them, while Tella's and Dante's is more uneasy and they have to fight harder for it. But it's super great to see both sisters get a happy ending in the end. I do think Scarlet and Julian are my preferred couple of the two, but I do like Dante and Donatella. Was Dante a little emo this round? Yes, he was. But he still had that swagger. I just wish he kept his tattoos. Like, we don't see many hand tattoos or any tattoos in the fantasy genre, except for this shelf right here. That's like all my Fourth Wing and all of Sarah J. Maas. But for like most, they aren't tatted up. Like hand tattoos, I think look really cool. Please put them in your books. I might be putting them in my books. I don't know. I gotta decide on that one. But uh, the ending fit for the end of a part of the series. We still have the sister series, Once Upon a Broken Heart, and I still have the holiday special, which I will be flying through. I don't know if it'll be next week or the week after that, but I definitely want to fit in a art video sometime. We will see if that will be next week or the week after that, but we will figure that out. But I guess the only real issue, again, as I said before, was the chapter layouts. I do love the kind of the format of one character, two character, both characters. But this one, it did feel like Scarlet was sidelined, and I have to agree with a lot of people on their internet because it's kind of true. Yes, Tella had more of her story that needed to be told, but I also really like the way Scarlet is written. It's not the fact that I don't like how Donatella is written, because I do also like that. I just like, if it was against the two of them, I do like Scarlet a little bit more. Her portrayal of emotions is very interesting, and you don't see that a lot. As emotions as colors, you see them as anything else. But I just don't know. It definitely got better at the end, but I just wish there was more. A really good book series that does like multi POVs a lot better is the Grishaverse by Leah Bardot. I really hope I'm saying her last name right. But it handles even 6 characters very well. Like the different POVs are spread very nicely. And yes, you may be wanting for a character, but as soon as you want that character more, it's going to come up like real quick. And all the characters are interestingly written. And same with Carval, but I just wanted more Scarlet, I guess. Um Tella was still interesting. I think Scarlet's just my favorite. Gorlie is, I think that also has to play with the fact that she was the main character in the first book and everything else like that. But yeah, I guess the layout of the chapters could have been nicer because you got like 4 Donatella chapters and then 1 Scarlet chapter and like another 4 Donatella chapters. And there's like a few times where suspense was used very well, but I think, I just don't know. I think we could have seen more Scarlet, which, again, I'm not the author. You don't really know what had to be cut and what didn't work for the book, and that's completely fine. But it's, yeah, I guess Scarlet was really sidelined in this book. And unfortunately, I do have to give that 4 to 5 stars this time because it bothered me so much that Scarlet was sidelined. And I still love the Caraval series. All in all, it's like a 5 out of 5 series for me so far. But it's just, it just felt missing for Scarlet's end of the story. I would, maybe I just wanted to see Julian and Scarlet kiss more. It was definitely that. But I also did like to see Donatella and Julian make out in the market as they wasted hours of their time. Because with the time difference, it was like an hour in the market equals a day in like their world, and it was just genuinely probably would have done the same as them. If I was having romantic tension and he started kissing, I would kiss. But also time crunch. But we did confirm at that moment they were endgame and they were having a kid. I just, I need more. And I really hope Once Upon a Broken Heart answers some of the questions I have with Jax. Um, Mainly because I want him to be happy. Yes, he's a playboy. And I like Marley Gray. But it's he wanted love and he was trying to love. And yeah, he didn't put any effort into his parents, but you know what? I'll let it slide because he looks good. Even Tella mentioned that, but I just wish there was more. And I hope the holiday book does give me more, but I have a feeling it's gonna give me more Tella. Which I'm happy with that, but also like I want to see Scarlet and Julian more because their love is just so sweet and easy. Kind of like I don't know if any of you watched Bridgerton, but a friend suggested it to me and I watched it. And Francesca, she is not one of my favorite characters because there's like so few information about her, but her love is so sweet. And it's not this explosion that just happens. It's soft. Like just it breathes. And it's beautiful. And it's just yeah. I don't know. I'm excited to see where the series goes. And then I fear Shatter Me might be iffy. I had a friend read it and the amount of times I saw this move across the desk at school was too much. I'm excited for Aaron Warner though. But sometimes if I don't want to read another book after, I'll like purposely go slow reading on the book I'm on. But let's go have fun Christmas and then we can pop over to Once Upon a Broken Heart. And most likely I'll need tissues. But yeah, go get some water, lovelies. I love you. See you later. Kisses. And make sure you have a good day today. All right? Love you. See you, lovelies.